Welcome to In the Green Room. I'm Kinga.
And I'm Chet.
And we have Wally.
Wally Collins.
With the
famous restaurateur. Everybody knows Wally's.
Well, we've been very, very fortunate in town here. The Arcadia store has been here 22 years, and the store up on Doubletree in Gainey Ranch has been there 17 years.
Both of
that's
them
a long
beloved
time.
restaurants.
Fun.
Well, the locals love them. Anybody that's from Arizona, because we do have a lot of listeners from all around the country and world, actually. So
go to Wally's because it's great. I don't know if you know this, but his grandparents, that was one of their favorite restaurants.
Well, that's great. Great.
And-
We get a lot of our third generation families now. We get these kids in now with little babies, and they go, "We used to come here when we were this age."
Well, do you remember going there with the grandparents?
yes, of course.
Yes.
And we're also going to be talking about your book. You're obviously a very creative person. You like to create your own restaurant and your own book. What came first, the fact that you knew you wanted to start a restaurant, or the fact you knew you wanted to write?
Oh no, the writing came much later.
Okay.
I did the restaurant business for over 40 years, and
Well, give us your background. How did we get to that? Because tell us about
well,
like,
that's kind of a funny story.
Yeah.
I graduated from college and went to University of Southern California.
USC.
At USC.
That's
and
a big
then,
deal.
And then went immediately into the Air Force as an officer. And
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Appreciate it.
Went to pilot training. Went to Vietnam. Came back. Went to Vietnam again for another tour. Came back in 1972 and got hired by Western Airlines to be an airline pilot. And all my life, I just wanted to be an airline pilot. My dad was a career naval aviator, and so I'd been around pilots my whole life. And so that's all I ever wanted to do. And once I got that job, I hated it. Isn't that funny? Something you've always wanted to do, but it was so boring.
Was
Why?
it?
It was just boring. You had to deadhead. I had to fly. I lived in Orange County, and I had to fly out at Denver because I was junior, one of the new guys. And so then I would deadhead to Denver and deadhead back home after 2 days. And I spent my whole life in airports. And I'm going, wait, I can't do that. I'm too energetic.
And you're sitting a lot too.
And yeah, it's just boring.
Yeah.
And so I met Don Callender, who after a meeting I had with him on a Saturday morning for 4 hours, convinced me that I really wanted to go in the restaurant business.
Marie Callender's. Do you remember Marie
Yeah.
Callender's?
Vaguely, yes.
Okay.
I know.
And Marie Callender's at the time had like 40 restaurants. And I talked with him, and he said, "I'll give you a franchise after 3 months after I see if you're committed." And I went to work for him and learned the restaurant business and opened my first store in 1974 in Reno, Nevada. And I had three Marie Callender restaurants, did other restaurants, pubs, barbecue, all kinds of fun restaurants. And then moved to Phoenix, and immediately I had a consulting company called Restaurant Consultants, and we built Alice Cooper's restaurant downtown,
Very cool.
which was a hit for a couple of years.
I had one quick question while we're on the topic of you being a pilot.
Yeah.
When a flight is delayed, does the pilot still get paid during that time period or not?
Good question.
I don't know if the pilots do, but I know that the flight attendants do not.
They
get
don't.
paid.
Yes, I have a friend who just basically quit being a flight attendant, and she loves like the traveling aspect, but she said that was ultimately the main reason why she quit, because delays are so common nowadays, and none of the flight attendants get paid during that time.
Oh, it's
So
horrible.
they can just be on the flight. Like if it gets delayed for 2 hours, they're not getting paid during any of that time, and they're having
That's
all
so
these
unfair.
yeah, and they're having all these impatient people like mad at them at the same time, basically
still
blaming them.
still on the airplane.
Yeah, exactly. So they need to change that rule ASAP
I
because
can't believe the union allows it. And
Yeah.
they did try that. They tried to change it, the union. They were going to strike on that subject. And the problem is, they said, fine, we'll give you that, but we're going to take away all your travel
oh wow.
and so many people just are in the airlines just purely for the travel advantages.
Oh, interesting.
And so that's how it didn't happen.
Interesting. I wonder, they'd probably end up making more money with how common delays are happening now. You know, if they took the money pay over the travel. But I don't know. It was an interesting topic. I had to ask you that question. So let's go back to your story of building Alice Cooper's restaurant.
So I just built Alice Cooper's restaurant, and it opened.
And ironically, I'm friends with Alice and Cheryl
right,
Cooper.
Right, you're very good friends with them.
Yes.
And it went along. I don't know exactly how many years it was there. I only stayed for a year after I built it and ran it for a year. And then I built Wally's Pub in Arcadia.
Right.
So wait, how did that come to fruition? They came to you and said, hey, will you do this restaurant with us?
You mean Alice?
Alice and Cheryl Cooper.
Well, it was a gentleman who was part of their group who I've met over at, when I was working out at the Village. And I gave him one of my cards one day, and he said, you know, we may need somebody like you to help. We're talking about doing a restaurant with Alice downtown. And I said, well, I've built 8 restaurants to date, because I'd built quite a few restaurants in Reno and Florida. And so it just worked out great, and I got to know a lot of people in town. And it was fun. And then the Wally's property came up, and that's the start.
That's wild that you had such success with your first restaurant, because it's very famously an industry that like 80% of them fail in the first like 2 years. And most people don't have success until like their 3rd or 4th or 5th concept or something. So that's so cool that your first try was such a success. It's still open.
I was very lucky.
Why was it so successful?
Well, it's just that you create a culture, and you create a culture within your restaurants where, we have a system where we hire somebody and they train, and then they come on the floor, but we don't have to worry about really keeping a real tight eye on those people, because the other employees will, because they treat their sections like those sections are their restaurant for that day. That's our culture. This section is your restaurant today. Treat it like your restaurant. And that's what I've always done in my restaurants, and it seems to work very well still to this day.
I love that.
And the family, we have 8 other restaurants in town. My son Chris has 8 restaurants, and
what are the names of all of them?
The restaurants, there are 4 up at Via Ventura and Hayden.
Grassroots.
Grassroots is up there. Collins Public House.
I love those restaurants.
St. Urban's. And then the Sweet Provisions ice cream store. And then we have the Collins at 32nd Street in Camelback, Macintosh at Town and Country, Neighborly at 7th Street. And Chris is presently working on a restaurant to be in the Central Corridor.
Very cool.
And so my kids are busy.
I know she's one of the biggest fans or regulars at those restaurants.
Well,
you go to the Collins and Grassroots really frequently. At least once a month.
I go to Grassroots and I go to Macintosh.
One of your better customers.
I actually don't go to Collins, and
you used to go there a bunch.
Well, okay, I used to go there, but I lost my sunglasses right after my dad died that I wore to his funeral. And I went back to get them.
So you lost your glasses? Okay.
And so I stopped going there. But anyway, but I like the other ones.
It's the most random.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, you think? No, it does not. You think he has like bad luck now?
Geez, so we have to buy your sunglasses to get you come back? I mean, I bought her lunch last time we were together,
Oh my gosh, that's funny. But no, Macintosh and Grassroots are 2 of my favorite restaurants. Okay. They're incredibly good and yummy. And I have a great idea for a restaurant. But I don't know if I should divulge it, because
you better be careful. We could steal.
Secret is sells food.
I'm not building any more restaurants.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, because I'm not going to do a restaurant either. Farrell's. Do you remember the restaurant Farrell's?
Sure.
That was such a fun restaurant for kids to go to, and I remember my dad would always use it like, if you.
I'm out as an investor. The last place I want to go out to eat is a place that's full of kids. I'm out immediately.
All right, he's out.
This is Shark Tank. I'm out.
Well, you've got the place in Scottsdale what's that place in Scottsdale, right on Scottsdale Road? Been here for 50 years. The ice cream place that's there, so that's a Farrell's.
No, but they had everything there. They had great food, but it wasn't just ice cream. But they had this thing called the zoo, and I remember they would ring this bell if you ate the whole thing, and it was just like, several scoops of ice cream, banana, chocolate syrup. Remember that?
No,
do you remember Farrell's?
I remember Farrell's, but I don't remember that.
I remember
this predates me, because I don't remember.
Well, they bring this. They bring
predated.
Yeah, you're predated. And I just remember it was at this mall. I think it was called the Colonnade or something. I can't remember the name of the mall, but there was a pet store there too. So almost every time we'd go there, we'd go look at the puppies too. So it was super fun to do puppies and ice cream. But anyway, my second idea for a restaurant would be or not a restaurant. I just saw that bookstores.
So your idea was copying another outdated idea that went out.
Well, this is my idea. This next one. Okay,
that's what I want.
This
Can't
next
wait
one.
to hear this one.
This.
That's why, you know, most of them fail after the first year, 60% after 3 years.
Okay, so this one's more for adults because it's not actually just a restaurant. It's actually an independent bookstore because there's like no more bookstores anymore. And I was watching on the news that there are so many people that are really successful right now that are popping up with these little independent bookstores. And there's I videotaped the whole thing. I'll show it to you. There's this really successful lady that's been doing bookstores in different towns, and she also makes them into a bar. And then she has a theme, like a romance theme, and the mixed drinks, so people can go there and they can read books, buy books, and have drinks. Is that a great idea?
So your idea is copying another idea. Oh my gosh.
I don't know if people that read a lot are not real extroverts to be.
Yeah, that it sounds like
I disagree with that.
I wouldn't invest in that one.
There's a book club apparently.
I know there's a book club.
It's like a boozy library.
You know,
yeah, it's
I
cool.
was going to talk to some bookstores about doing book signings for my book, but the problem is that, you know, they want you to be able to. They want you to do too much for the amount of books that you would probably sell.
Okay, well,
let's get into the book a little bit.
Okay, so let's talk about your
where
book.
did you so
When
the
did you write it?
restaurant
Well,
started first.
after being in the restaurant business for 40 years, I decided that I was going to write a book when I had a terrible kidney stone. I never thought of aging my entire life. And, you know, I just worked and I had a ball at the restaurants. I had so much. I never thought about aging, and I got this damn kidney stone.
I don't know what that really is. What is a kidney stone?
Kidney stone is a calcium
You hear about it,
calcite that gets stuck in your ureter, in your urine
but
tract.
ouch.
And it gets stuck. It's
Ouch.
either in your kidney, in your ureter, or further down.
Ouch.
And when it gets so big, it won't move.
Ow.
And the pain is excruciating. When I went into the emergency room, the ER doctor came in and he looked at me in the fetal position in the emergency room, and he looked at me and he goes, "How's that kidney stone doing?" They knew, because it's the most painful. It's like giving birth.
Wow.
Oh. Okay.
And so I went through that,
Mm.
and then I got, from the reaction from all the procedures I went through, I got sepsis and pseudomonas, where I almost died.
Wow.
And luckily I went to the emergency.
So is that from the procedure to get the stone
Yes,
removed?
yes.
Oh, okay.
And so I went.
Oh, so you couldn't pass it then? It had
No,
to
I
be
did.
removed.
I did
Oh, okay.
pass it. I had a lipotripsy, if you know what that is.
What's that?
Don't. If you could educate us a little bit. We like to learn here.
Yeah.
So lipotripsy is, and I'll just give you my own version of it, is they put a laser, and it has to be a small laser, to go down your gadget
Yeah.
all the way
Oh.
down.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And that
then-
breaks it down.
And they take the laser and goes up into your ureter, and it breaks up the stone until it's so small that you can urinate and lose it.
See, that's a fascinating process. I'm glad you told us about that.
Well,
That's
is.
like
That is.
out of sci-fi or something.
But
Yeah.
it's a little, you know,
Yeah.
if you're a guy, you're going, wait a minute. What, you're going to what?
That's not going to feel good the next day.
You're
That's
gonna
for sure.
do what?
Oh, so that had complications then, and
Then
that's
I
what
had
led to the sepsis.
complications, and then I got sepsis, and the doc at the emergency room, when I went in, he said, "Wally, you are so lucky you came in here, because you could have been dead in a couple of days." So I was in IVs for 3 days at the hospital.
Wow.
So I started thinking, Wally, you're getting older. I was 74, but I felt 59. That was kind of the number I used. And so I started looking at articles. What is aging? And so I studied it and researched it and whatever. And I was up in Sun Valley, and I sat down at the word processor and I wrote this book. And it's done very well.
It's done very well. I've read it.
It's very apropos to
And
today.
it's funny. It's funny.
And I tried to make it funny.
Mhm.
And I've told life stories on how I look at afterlife and how I look at certain things because of who I am and my experiences.
And did your wife help you write it?
No,
Okay, you did it all yourself.
all myself.
From what I understand, being well hydrated can help prevent kidney stones, but ultimately
Absolutely.
they can be just a result of time that you won't be able to avoid.
Well, it's
But being more hydrated
it's
helps.
a function of your physiology,
Yes.
but also your diet.
Yes.
And so,
What
And
part?
anatomy, because like
Mhm.
the right person
Yeah.
could theoretically have a terrible diet and drink whiskey every day and never get a kidney stone, and then somebody
Right.
else who has effort to not get one could end up with one just because of
And
genetics.
you do certain things. You know,
Yeah.
I drink lemon juice every day. There's certain things
Oh.
there's certain things I don't eat because of the amount of calcium in them.
Can alcohol have a contributing
It
factor?
dehydrates you, so it
Well,
does
it
not help.
dehydrates you more. I drink a lot. I flavor my water, but I drink a lot of water every day for that reason,
Mhm.
to keep everything rolling in
Mhm.
the deal.
Yeah.
So do you have you quit alcohol
No,
altogether?
I haven't quit it, but I don't drink anything like I used to with my friends. But
Mhm.
all my friends died because they drank too much. So I write about that in my book. Every year when I lived in Reno, I had a fabulous pub. It was the most famous pub in Reno,
Mhm.
called the Board of Trade.
Mhm.
And so my buddies used to drink a lot, and I'm going, guys, you have to slow down here a little bit.
Mhm.
And so I used to do a contest every year where 13 of us put $1,000 in the pot. And you had to lose 8% of your body weight from January 1st to St. Patrick's Day.
What a good idea.
And so it was my way of hopefully getting them to stop drinking.
Mhm.
So I did this for 3 years in my pub, and it was a riot because everybody would come in and weigh in. And of course, these guys are chugging water, so their starting weight was up high. And everybody would laugh at them and whatever. But the same 7 guys every year won the pot. The 6 other guys never made their weight. All 6 of those guys died before the national average
Wow.
for men
Wow.
Wow.
because they drank too much. So that was my
Mm-hmm.
epiphany
Mhm.
on alcohol. Now I drink Campari and I drink Stella with a little tomato juice and whatever, but I've done it.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
drinking, if you don't become an alcoholic.
Yeah. Well, it's
Sure.
probably hard not to being a pub owner because you're always in the
Yeah.
atmosphere.
But the rule was, and I learned that the first restaurant I opened, an old bartender told me, he said, Wally, I was Walt then, I wasn't Wally till I opened the pub, but he said, never accept a drink from a customer because they'll want you to buy them a drink and you'll end up drinking too much. And he
Smart.
said,
That's so smart.
And I learned that, and so I never drank while I was working, ever.
Smart.
Oh, that's
Smart.
really
So
smart.
I was never a big drinker, but I hung out with some wild characters,
Yeah,
and especially
I
in
can imagine.
Reno. And that's why I ended up back in Phoenix. My wife really didn't want me to go back to Reno when we were in Florida.
Well,
So-
I've been trying to, tell any of my friends that, drink too much, that it really is a less is more thing. If you do it less frequently, it's more enjoyable, and then you'll be able to do it for a longer period in your life. If you try to go too fast and too short with it, you're going to, A, risk your long-term health, and B, you're going to use up all of those drinking days or opportunities to enjoy it, because it can be fun. It can elevate a concert or a night out with friends or a
Sure.
holiday. And so it's really is a less is more thing.
Well,
and
everything in
try to-
moderation.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
I'm a wine drinker. I just like wine.
And I write about that moderation is the key.
But moderation should be only once or twice a week, max. Really. Like, it's not about reducing it and doing it every day. Because I have some friends that try to be like, oh, I only drink 3 drinks a day. I'm like, well, if you're doing it every day,
Yeah.
then that's not moderation.
Well, I've seen on Facebook recently, there've been all kinds of little reels on all these guys that have gotten sober. Tom Hardy, great actor.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about what getting sober did for him. Mel Gibson, all these actors who at a certain times in their life drank too much.
Well, Alice
Well,
Cooper.
and your
Well,
your book
Alice.
is all about aging,
Mhm.
and a lot of it is because the science is in about how bad drinking is for your body. It ages all of your tissues rapidly.
There's no doubt about it.
Your liver,
Nobody can
your
argue with it.
skin,
Right.
circulatory system, every single organ in your body is poisoned by alcohol, and so it speeds up your aging process. And the science is in. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Andrew Huberman. He's the
Well, it takes
head
away
of
your memory.
he's the head of neuroscience at Stanford, and he has a podcast, the Huberman Lab, where he basically goes on deep dives about how different substances affect the brain long term and the rest of the body. And he has a whole show that's all dedicated about alcohol. And in that show, he says that basically the maximum number of drinks you should have per week is 2 before you start really accelerating the aging process. And so basically the healthy amount of drinks to have per week are 2 on just one night. anything past that, you're aging yourself really rapidly. And so the science is in. If you want to drink in a healthy way, it's once a week and only a couple of drinks, and that's it.
And I see that's changed in our business too.
Yeah.
You don't see. Plus, it's become expensive to drink in bars now because liquor's not cheap anymore.
Yeah, it's gone up for
like
sure.
It used to be. And so we see that we don't have that much of that problem anymore like we used to have.
The daily drinkers.
Yeah. And the guys who just drank too much.
Get hammered and kicked out. Yeah.
And we haven't had an incident recently unless somebody came in that way.
Okay, so I have a question. How do you feel about cannabis?
Well, cannabis isn't something we are economically involved with, but personally, I use a gummy to help me sleep.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you because I know you told me that.
I use a 10, 10, and 10 gummy that really helps me sleep because as we get older, sleeping is more of a problem.
Yeah.
And because I'm working brain-wise all day, either writing another book that I'm working on Picasso and Hemingway, or a play that I just finished on Hemingway being reincarnated to Key West, my brain is still going. Even though I take a shower and get into bed, my brain's still working. And the gummies have done an amazing job for me. Now, in the end, what's the end result going to be from gummies? Nobody really knows how they're going to affect your brain.
Well, Willie Nelson looks like he's doing pretty well, still playing concerts at over 90 years old.
Well, that's like the 90-year-old drunk and the dead doctor. You know, it's the same thing. There are exceptions.
Well, he's a good example that you can have heavy intake every day and still be functioning, because a lot of 90-year-olds that are his age can't even get out of bed on their own, and he's still touring.
He's definitely an exception.
Yeah,
he's an exception. I was a drug abuse officer.
True, but
you were?
Yeah.
Wait, you didn't tell us about that.
If you look at how the two substances affect your cells, alcohol creates inflammation everywhere. It makes your liver inflamed, your kidneys inflamed. Cannabis is anti-inflammatory, which is why it's prescribed to a lot of chemo patients and patients who are like at the end of their life who need the pain killing, the appetite, it activates your appetite, and then the anti-inflammatory aspects of it. So
which kind do you use?
If you look at it,
I don't know the brand. It's just a gummy. It's a 10, 10, 10, and 10.
And gummies are definitely the healthiest way to consume it, because then you're putting no stress on your lungs or
no, I'm not.
I'm
not smoking it.
Yeah, and so I was being devil's advocate. The only way that there really are negative side effects is if you're smoking it, like Willie is.
Yeah.
But generally, if you're comparing the two substances, cannabis is going to be healthier for most people. But it's interesting. They did a study in Israel, because it's basically the only place that's having true clinical studies. And basically 1 out of 5 people or 1 out of 6 people don't even process the cannabis correctly. Like it basically is enacted as like a toxin. It makes them feel sick, and that's why there's that stereotype of some people that when they take a hit they get nervous and like nauseous,
paranoid.
Literally, there's 1 out of 5 people, and they can't help it. And they have this other guy that's saying, "Oh, just hit it harder, man." But no, like they've done the science. That's about 15% of the people in this study, they literally couldn't break the cannabis down. So it's one of those things where people are going to have to listen to the science as more of it comes out, and they're going to have to listen to their bodies. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing, similar to alcohol, though. Some people, they have a few drinks and they're ready to fight everybody. So it's similar to how just about 1 out of 5 people...
Everything in moderation.
Well, no,
Hashtag.
That's not true. That's not the message. The message is some things don't work for some people. So the people that get drunk and angry, they should stop drinking. Or people that don't get the right effects from cannabis and get paranoid, they shouldn't smoke.
Some people like to be a airline commercial pilot, and you didn't. So everybody's different, and everybody has different thoughts and different,
Well, that's different though, because that's a preference. We're talking about like the way your body literally can.
So how did you meet your wife?
How did I meet my wife?
Yes.
I was a pilot at the time and stationed in Sacramento in the Air Force, and she was a college student, and her sister was going out with a friend of mine, and we double dated, and next thing I knew I had 6 kids and 15 grandkids.
Wow.
How long have you been married?
52 years.
Wow.
One question I was going to have is,
what's the secret to happy 52 years?
The only thing I can say is that you have to be calm. You have to be a calm, accepting human being.
Especially with that many kids.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot.
And you weigh the fact of what, does this really aggravating me, or is it that important? And so I'm not saying we all aren't constantly weighing that.
Sorry.
But I just think you have to be calm about it and not get too self-centered about the relationships.
Do you have
I
any
like
rules
that. I
like
like
no
that.
going to bed mad?
No, we don't really have any rules other than I can't cook in the kitchen for 2 days after the cleaning ladies come. That's about the only rule we have. She's got this thing.
So one question I have is, you were saying there's some really funny stories in here. Would you be down to share like one of your favorite ones?
Sure,
It'd be a
sure.
fun little promo for the
Sure.
book.
That's a great idea. But,
One of the greatest stories
okay.
is my father. My father was at D-Day
Oh wow.
in the Navy,
Wow.
a young ensign, and
The reason we're not speaking German right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
and he participated in D-Day, and when the first landing crafts hit the beaches, there were a lot of casualties, and a lot of casualties floating in the water.
Hmm.
He was on a subchaser, which had a low keel, a low draft. So instead of being out looking for German submarines, which is what they were supposed to do, they called him in to pick the bodies out of the water.
Hmm.
And they made like 4 or 5 trips to the hospital ship with bodies. And my father never told me this story until I came back from my first tour in Vietnam, because he said, I couldn't tell you this story knowing you were in the military until I knew you came back from a war. And he said, you can relate to how I look at afterlife now, after that day.
Mhm.
Since that day in 1944, June of 44, right?
Mhm.
Or I can't remember what year, but he said, I have appreciated every moment of my life. And I told him that I can appreciate that flying medevacs in the aircraft that I flew, that I can appreciate every day, just like he did. And I've been to Normandy and been terribly emotionally affected by Normandy, just as he was when he went back 40 years later and wept. My mother said my father was on his knees weeping, but he remembers that. And so that's why in this book I tell that story, because I want people to understand how you have to appreciate every day of your life, because what's the alternative? A lot of people don't get that opportunity, especially those young men who died at D-Day.
And this is one of the reasons why we stress why people need to appreciate veterans more, because veterans making those sacrifices are the reasons why we all have such easy lives, where the only stressful thing is the long line at Starbucks.
Unfortunately, it's mostly another veteran who appreciates a veteran versus people that have not gone through that experience. That's at least has been my experience. That veterans don't have any problem accepting that. It's the other people that don't quite can't, and you can't expect them to, not having done it themselves.
Well, it's just sad how the wrong things are glorified in society today. Like, veterans should be more glorified than like actors or any of those professions. But all these people line up to take pictures of the athletes, but they're not the reason why we're able to enjoy the movies or the sports in the first place. The veterans are.
Right.
So that's why the veterans really deserve so much more appreciation, and then also so much more benefits from the government. Like, I don't know, it just feels like, I know a few veterans personally that, don't receive proper health care, that still have to pay for it out of pocket and stuff like that. So I just really think that veterans deserve more.
Well, that's unfortunate, because the VA has been very good to me. So I really can't, and I don't have any real after effects other than some Agent Orange effects that they classified from Agent Orange, because I used to get sprayed all the time, because I'd be on the wing of my aircraft fueling it, and the ranch hands were right next to me, and they would be filling up the tanks on these 123s to drop that Agent Orange, and I'd be sitting there and all these drops are falling all around me on the wing of the aircraft, and I'm going, what is this? It's not raining. And I finally found out what it was. So years later I went to the VA about it, and they took good care of it.
So when
That's
you,
good that you had a
do you
good
ever have
experience
any
with
nightmares from
No.
what you saw? No,
No.
that's good. And how do you enjoy every day? Because that is my, that's so me. Kinga is a enjoy every day type of girl. And have I passed it on to you and Rachel? Yes.
Oh, definitely. Well,
So,
yeah, I've
yeah.
always basically just thought about the what ifs of being drafted, and I've just always been an overthinker, thinking about like having a expiration date one day, and that has made me appreciate every moment. So
every moment.
yeah.
So
And
how,
I
what's your
definitely
joy?
learned that
What's
partially
your
from
joy?
you, but
Well, my joy since retiring, I mean, obviously the joy was the restaurant business. I loved it for 42 years, but I started painting, and then I started.
When did you start painting?
2012.
Okay.
I started painting. I went to Europe, spent 30 days in Paris, took some painting classes, and came back, and all I wanted to do was paint and sculpt. So I went into the restaurant one day, and my two sons were standing there because one was working for me before he started his restaurants. And I just went in and clapped my hands, and I said, I'm done. Call me if you need me. And I left. And that's the true story. I was done. And I'd done it all my life and loved it, every day of it. But
I love hearing that because some people, you know, they'll have a passion for something and maybe they don't like their job, but you had a passion for your restaurants.
I had both passions, and then the painting took over. And that's what in the book I talk about. You have to encourage and facilitate those new passions when you retire. Don't retire unless you have a plan. And that's in the book too, because you have to have a passion every day. I paint, sculpt. My grandkids were all over this week. If you look at my face page, they made the Empire State Building in the sculpture, then they painted it, patinaed it, and then they painted, and they just love it. And if I can pass that kind of love.
And also you love cooking.
Well, we've talked
That's
about
all I
love
we've
cooking.
talked about
Cooking.
any type of passion that is specifically creative in any way, whether that's writing, sculpting, painting. It's
Music.
so good for your brain to be creating anything new. Yeah, music.
I'm going to have an art sale this weekend at Wally's Pub on Friday and Saturday, just because I've accumulated so many canvases in my house. My wife walks through and said, "When's your next art sale? You really need to have it." And I'll be selling.
I like these, but
I'll be selling paintings for $100. I mean, I just got to get rid of these paintings. So Friday and Saturday, I'll be at Wally's. I'll be at Wally's Pub.
Okay, so what time to what time?
Meet the artist.
Oh, I don't know. I usually get set up by noon.
Okay.
And then I stay till it gets dark, and then the next day on Saturday, I'll set up and go home Saturday night. And if I can sell a bunch of paintings, I'm perfectly happy.
You make your wife happy too.
And I've made my wife and the cleaning ladies very happy.
Are they abstracts, acrylic,
All kinds.
watercolor?
I haven't really established what my style is yet, because to me the challenge is, how did they do that? How did that painter make that painting? Now it could be anything, a landscape. I do some Robert Moore landscapes. I've done some Picasso reproductions. Never can get the same feel that he had. But I love finding out how that artist made that painting.
Painting is so fascinating to me too, because it's the one art form I have zero skill with at all. Like, I'm great with music, and I can create the vision for the art for like my song releases and stuff, but I could never actually create it and like paint it.
Well, you
or
don't
graphic
know
design
that
it.
yet. You really don't know that.
Based on the evidence from when I painted back in like art class, like it's definitely a skill I would try to get better at and refine.
He's
but
talented.
it's wild that I have like a immediate talent with music, but not with anything related
Yes, you
to
do.
painting
I
or
bet
drawing.
if we put up a big canvas and you went to paint with Wally.
If you've spent some time studying painting or sculpting. I mean, I went to a sculpting class in Carlsbad.
It doesn't come to me naturally, I guess is the best way to say it. And I'm that much more impressed by it.
Only because you don't know.
Well, no, I took like art classes all through like, grade school and high school, and I would really put the effort in trying to get better, but I never really would.
But see, I thought they were great.
But you accomplish things now, and that's all it is how do I accomplish this?
He's saying that because he had I'm not going to say the teacher's name.
Well, I'm just
saying
saying
he had a bad teacher.
No, that's not true.
No, seriously.
No, that's not true at all.
And he didn't like guys. My daughter
that's not
would
true.
get straight A's in his pottery class. And
I'm talking about painting right now. I'm not even talking about
Bees.
pottery. I'm talking about painting.
Okay. So he didn't like the instructor.
I'm talking about painting right now. I love my painting teacher, Miss KB. I loved her.
Oh, okay. I'm talking about.
So what are you talking about?
I'm talking about your pottery.
I'm talking about painting right now.
Okay, I'm talking. Okay.
I think you'll find that as you get older, certain things will come to you that you weren't. I mean, whoever thought I was going to be a painter?
Well, I appreciate paintings that much more though, because it just doesn't come to me naturally. I love music and seeing music live as well, even though I'm talented with that. But it's just always been interesting to me how your brain is either wired to one or the other. So it sounds like you have the visual art gift.
I think it's the same brain, because I was in music too. I played the guitar. I was the joke.
Really?
Do you find yourself more proficient with music or painting?
Not anymore, because I have peripheral neuropathy and I can't strum like I used to. But I went to a music store yesterday to buy a new guitar, learning guitar for my two of my grandsons.
I love that.
And they said, Gampy, that's my grandpa name. They said, we're so busy, we don't have time for a guitar yet. Let's wait a couple of years, because we're taking drum lessons, we're taking piano lessons. One's a singer in a band. He's a 10-year-old.
Wow.
He's a 10-year-old.
Wow.
But they'll be fine at it. But they said, no. And I got to hand it to them. They said, let's not buy a guitar yet. So what did we do? We ended up for 2 hours over at the jump park. And I sit there with a bunch of old ladies, talking to a bunch of old ladies while they're at the pump.
I love it.
Well, it sounds like they already have a lot of creative talents brewing with the piano and the drums.
Oh,
so,
yeah. I think they're going to be fine at that, because I didn't start playing the guitar till I was in high school.
So are they painting as well? Do you give them painting lessons?
Oh yeah, paint and sculpt. They love it.
I love it. So do you have an art studio at your house?
Well, sort of, in a way. Yeah, I've manipulated one. I had one outside. It was a beautiful studio, but it was outside.
It's too hot.
It was too hot, and then I liked being in the house with the TV on and the refrigerator closed. And when the kids came in the house, I knew it. So I have like 4 or 5 paintings sitting there right now for the kids to finish. So to me, that's a wonderful time spent.
Oh, 100%.
And I think they appreciate it, and I think my kids appreciate the fact that I spend time with the grandkids that way.
Definitely.
Oh, of course.
So that's one of the things in the book that I talk about, are the associations that you need to facilitate as you get older. You can't ignore the fact that, well, I've moved and I don't have any friends in town. You can't do that. You have to join some groups, whether it's a movie group or a book group, or it's a group at coffee like every morning that I have. You
meet a bunch of guy friends.
You need to have associations. Very important.
Agreed.
Loneliness is the worst factor of aging.
And it's being worsened so much by technology. The phones, it seems like social media brings people together, but it really doesn't. It makes people more isolated. So
totally agree.
Yeah, people need to start.
I write about that in the play that I just wrote.
Okay, tell us about the play.
I wrote a play about Hemingway being reincarnated to Key West. And one of the scenes in the play is when he walks into Sloppy Joe's, his favorite bar, and everybody's on their phone. They're talking on their phone, they're on the phone, they're listening to music on the phone, and nobody's talking to each other. And he said, what is wrong with everybody? Is everybody depressed? Is that their new friend now, this machine? And I talk about that's how he's having trouble relating to coming back 64 years after he left Key West.
I love that. That's such a realistic take on how somebody would process the technology today, because it really is sad how you can walk into a restaurant and the majority of people are on their phones. I
hate it when families, everybody in the family is on their phone.
And they even have the kids watching a movie at the table.
It's the new babysitter. We have a rule at our house. If you come to our house, you have to either paint, sculpt, read, do something for the equal amount of time on your iPad or phone or TV. You don't just come and sit on the couch. And that works great.
I think the iPads and iPhones at the young ages are going to be so toxic for socialization. I think they're going to have to legally basically ban them or regulate them like how they do cars. Like, I don't think you should be able to get a smartphone until you're 16, just like how you can't drive a car. You shouldn't have
smartwatches. I think they make sense because your parents know where you are and you can talk if you have to, but
they shouldn't have internet access. You shouldn't have access to all the internet and all the terrible. The internet is full of terrible videos from wars. And people just think of porn or like naked stuff, but there's like way worse stuff that people can watch on the internet that they should not have access to.
They get instant gratification. Life is not instant gratification.
Yeah.
Life is time processing, and you have to be able to do that and spend your time wisely. These iPads and phones take that away, and they expect to be happy and excited in a second.
Yeah, and the only one small sliver of positivity that came from it was, oh, well, at least it's instant access to information, right? But now there's so much disinformation on there. There's as much bullshit and like fake stuff on there as there is real information.
Yeah, half of what I get is fake.
Yeah, so now
Facebook.
people are trying to use it to, you know, support arguments that aren't even real. And there's a lot of stuff that's posed as facts on the internet that aren't even facts. So it's really now just spreading disinformation along with the cancer to social interaction.
Just think of the confusion that it's causing in everybody's brain about what's real and what's not real.
Oh yeah, especially because there are like such obvious sides to every story. Like you see like basically a site that releases a article that's leaning like towards the left on a certain topic that totally displays the facts different than another like article from the right. It's completely just, nothing's consistent or accurate anymore online. So the one small positive aspect of being online is gone now because the information isn't credible anymore.
Well, let's go back to your great-grandfather, because you are really you're painting and sculpting. And I know when I was a kid, we thought our parents were like so out of touch, because my dad would say there's no TV until you write a poem, you practice your piano, you practice your violin, you go for a hike, you go swimming. After everything's done, we had to clean the house. We had a checklist. We had to do all this stuff. There was no TV. And after all that was done, on the weekend, we could have a friend over. But then we can't watch. Renee, my kindergarten best friend, I'm still best friends with her. She's called into the show to talk about how, we weren't allowed to do those things. And then after all that stuff was done, then we could pick like one show we could watch, and there couldn't be any violence.
That was tough.
And that's probably why you love to socialize so much.
Yes, that's
that's true.
Yeah,
that's
permanently
true.
affected
That's
you.
true.
You
Yes.
love to go out
Yes.
and have communities like you were talking about.
I do. I have lots of friends.
Regular interactions. So.
No, she's very good at it. I mean, she can communicate very easily with anybody. When we were having lunch, I mean, she was talking to everybody in the bar.
She needs socializing almost too much. Like if she was in Castaway as Tom Hanks, she would not make it. She wouldn't make it more than a day.
I've had guys who own companies or who interview people for jobs saying how young people have a tough time making eye contact, and how they can't speak without using like in every 3 words. And he says, I can't have somebody working for me that way. If you're out on the street and you're trying to sell or you're trying to organize things in a business, you can't be that way. And he said it's been a total reaction to the phones and iPads.
But I really think
it trickled down to my kids.
I was going to make a point that I really don't think it's a problem that's not going to be fixed until they actually regulate it, like how they do cars.
No, because parents have to be aware.
And it's parents are lazy too.
But the parents are addicted to the technology too. Yeah. That's why it's going to have to come with regulation, because it's basically a force you can't fight. They're so entertaining. Like the videos and the YouTube, everything on there is so...
Plus, parents are so busy doing so many things nowadays that it's easy for them to acquiesce to letting the kids do that. Because it's just easier. Yeah. The kids are mollified or whatever the word would be.
Well, you have to give the advice then.
But
it's come from you.
The parent has to spend the time. Yeah. And that's the other problem. The parents don't have the time or feel they have the time to spend.
Well, and we always talk about how step 1 is awareness. And that's why we try to talk about these things on the show. Because who knows, we might all go talk about this at whoever we hang out with later, and then they'll talk about it. And all of a sudden it's kind of being, at least discussed in the local community. But
with my kids, I did the same thing my dad did. I let them have friends all the time. Friends came over, but they had to have straight A's.
A big thing, you would only let us play video games when they came over. Yeah. So there was no, I would never play video games online with somebody virtually. They'd always be in person playing video games. But we would always also do something in the yard, playing basketball first. So you're right. It was always a in-person interaction,
But
which
that's
is why.
you're a social person like
Oh,
she
definitely,
is.
yeah.
Oh, he's
That
very
has a
social.
lot to do with it.
Yeah.
He's very
And that's
social.
what these guys were telling me at the bar one day, that it was just impossible to interview so many of these kids that they were looking around and they wouldn't look at you while they were talking.
Yeah, and that's why I'm genuinely concerned for these next couple of generations.
Why don't you run for office using that as the basis?
There we go.
Basis of your election.
I'm
I
not
love
corrupt
it.
enough to run for office. Yet,
That
but who knows,
and
maybe it'll
spam
come.
calls. Do spam calls, and those two things you're elected.
I think that's
for.
perfect.
Those
So
two
I'm not
things.
corrupt enough.
So I have a
yet.
question about the
Maybe
restaurants.
eventually.
Go ahead.
When you were running your restaurants, who would do the hiring? How did you know how to hire people?
Well, you just get good at it.
So were you the
You know-
one that?
Oh yeah, or we had managers that hired people too, but
Mhm.
they learned. I mean, because they have to learn too on how to hire.
Mhm.
And we were very fortunate. Very few mistakes. When I first started in the restaurants, hiring managers, I only hired managers, young managers, who wanted to own their own restaurants. And to this day, there are 12 guys that still own restaurants in Reno and Lake Tahoe who worked for me.
That's
Wow.
awesome. So you helped
Wow.
inspire
Yeah.
them.
And
teach
so
them, yeah.
I made him a deal. I said, you work for me for 18 months to 2 years. I'll teach you everything I know in the restaurant business. And then you'll be able to be a success at your restaurants, because I try to teach you what works rather than what you want to work.
Mhm.
And these kids all did a great job, worked hard. You don't want to hire somebody who wants to work necessarily for a salary. I mean, there are those people who do a great job working for a salary, as long as they get some kind of a profit motive.
Mhm.
But owning your own restaurant was, to me, the deciding factor on whether I hired somebody or not.
That's
I
cool,
love
because
that.
that meant they were truly inspired to
Yeah.
do the best job
And some didn't work
possible.
out because they didn't realize how hard it was.
Mhm.
'Cause the
Did
first,
you ever fire somebody?
Oh yeah. First
Was
thing
that hard?
No, because I'm saving them from making a terrible mistake. And so the first thing I did, and just like it was done to me, was to put them at the dishwasher.
Really?
You know, they expected to walk around, with a sports jacket on and, be the manager. And I said, no. You have to understand that if the dishwasher shows up, you're the only one who doesn't have a job, really. So you're going to end up dishwashing. So
I love
the secret of success is to be able to do everything in the restaurant.
Mhm.
And so,
Interesting.
and that's what Don Callender did to me. Here I was, a captain, decorated combat pilot, and he put me at the frying zucchini for like 7 hours one night. And he came into the kitchen and he said, how'd you like that? I said, that was fun. I said, I enjoyed working with the kids in the kitchen. And he said, really? I said, yeah, I thought it was fun. He said, you know why I put you there? I said, sure, I knew why you put me there. You just wanted to test me. And so, but the same thing with the dishwasher.
You're like, I don't have Agent Orange being sprayed on me. It's not
yeah,
that bad.
yeah, I was perfectly happy to be frying zucchini. We sold a hell of a lot of zucchini.
Yeah, no
too.
toxins covering my body.
Deep fried zucchini. But that's the secret of just hiring people. You have to know what your culture is. My son Christopher and Matt do great jobs hiring people because they know what their culture is, and they can tell within 5 minutes of talking to you whether you're going to work in that culture.
Really?
Oh yeah, you can tell.
Well, I do agree. He has great staff at Grassroots and
Yeah.
Macintosh.
We're lucky. In
Really
fact, I
great
had
It's
people.
so much-
interesting hearing that that's your secret to success, because so many people have the image of the celebrity chefs like Gordon Ramsay who would never ever picture washing a dish. So it's interesting to hear the reality of a truly successful chef. You do have to get gritty and do a little bit of everything, because he's separate tension. You wouldn't picture him
Have you ever
washing
watched
a
the
dish.
Bear show on TV? The Bear?
I've heard it's amazing. I haven't
It's
gotten around
amazing.
to it
It's
yet.
a little over the top dramatically, but you start out doing just the simplest things,
Mhm.
and that's the dishwasher
Mhm.
in those 1-star restaurants.
Mhm.
But it's a great way to learn everything. I think it's better than going to culinary school. Just start working for great restaurants, doing anything, and slowly work your way up, and then go to another great restaurant and go to another great restaurant. That's the way you find out what culture works the best.
Interesting.
I was fortunate that I started with a good culture, but
So did your wife ever work in the restaurants?
no. She was a hostess when she was in college,
Mm-hmm.
but she didn't. We had so many children that she was in charge of the house. I mean, I never had anything to do with the house. She ran the entire house because I was always at the restaurant.
So we heard the story about your dad and D-Day, which was very moving. But could we potentially hear about one more story from in here as like one last little promo? Because we only have about 5 more minutes left. It'd be fun to hear one more of your favorite stories from in here. This is Wally Collins' book, Where's My Phone, My Glasses, My Keys, My Remote, The Subtle Joy of Aging. So,
well, one of the important things that people have to understand is your chronological age is really not your status of aging. You can't go by just your numerical age, because there are a lot of people at 65 who are done.
That's so true.
They're done.
That's true.
But there are 90-year-olds who you can't stop them doing stuff. Why?
That's so true.
I saw a thing about like the
My
Guinness.
grandma at 105.
There you go.
Yeah, I saw a thing about the Guinness World Record, like oldest gymnast ever. She's like 99, still doing the beams. Like she has probably better core strength than us.
Do you know that by 2050 there are going to be 3.4 million people over the age of 100?
That's amazing.
How
In
cool.
2015 there are 431,000. In I can't remember exact date, but 2000 there were only 400,000.
And those numbers could be higher as technology improves with medical.
All the
technology.
molecular stuff they're doing now is incredible.
100%.
I have a buddy going through a study right now who has a cancer, and they're trying to, what they're trying to do is to enable his immune system to be fortified and attack the cancer instead of attacking the cancer cells, because that ends up killing so many other things. So it's interesting.
Something that I remember that we didn't talk about is didn't you win for the Ernest Hemingway contest?
Yes, years ago I had a friend who I grew a beard, and he said, "You've got to go see this barber over in town. He's been here 40 years. He's a Hall of Fame barber, and he won the Ernest Hemingway contest in 2002." The Ernest Hemingway Lookalike Contest has been going on in Key West since 1984.
Wow.
Or before. It's 46 years now. And so what we do is they have a contest every year. 150 contestants come down to Key West for Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. 75 go through the ringer on Thursday night interview, then another 75, and then they pick 24, and then 5, and then 1. And it's the most fabulous group of guys. It's a bunch of wild old guys who are wild young guys. But they're great personalities with great histories, with doing all kinds of things. And we have
and you won what year?
I won in 2014.
And now he's a judge.
Cool.
Now he's a judge.
And when you win, you become a judge. And I run the auctions on Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday. We raise about $100,000 a year. We have an endowment at the College of the Florida Keys where we give away 20 nursing scholarships every year.
Wow, that's incredible.
And what happens is you'll be walking down the street with your Papa medal on or whatever in your outfit, and ladies will come up to you and say, "I went to nursing school because of your scholarships."
Oh, that's
awesome.
amazing.
And the whole idea is to get them to stay in Key West. So we have endowed.
Is this in July?
In July is when the contest, because that was his birthday.
July what?
July the 23rd to the 25th.
And you're going to be the judge, and then you're also
I'm one of the judges. There are usually 14 to 15 judges. Papa's still alive.
How fun. We should try to get over there.
It is
fun.
the
That's
most
fun.
fun you can have with your clothes on. I'm telling you. My two of my sons and my godson came last year and had the most fun. They said, "Dad, is it like this every year?" And I said, "Yes, I've been coming since 2009.
Sounds very fun. Sounds like
Well,
an
you
interesting
got to
group
go
of
to
people.
Key West and do it, because it's so much fun, and we do a lot of things for the town. We do a running of the bulls with fake bulls that you push.
How fun.
It's a big deal. It's a wonderful deal.
And are
Very
you going to
fun.
recite your play this year?
I don't know if I'm going to do it in July or in March. We're going back in March because the College of the Florida Keys wants to thank us for being the biggest endowment at the college.
Very cool.
Wow, that's so
Very
And
exciting.
so I may do it then.
You may do it
But
then.
We'll see it. It's a longer play than I think I can remember at this age.
Well,
So
that's
we have
very
like
exciting.
30 seconds. What
Okay.
do you want your quote to be? What do you want about aging?
I just think you have to understand that passion is the key.
Passion is the key.
Passion is the key every day.
Saving the planet.
One
One
show
show
I
at
don't
a
care about
time.
the planet. I just care about my own ass.